What's going on, guys? It's Bert and I'm here with my 2016 F87 BMW M2 with the N55 engine, and I'm bringing you guys what I believe to be the ultimate buying guide for this car. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is essentially giving you all the information that you guys need to be able to buy a BMW M2, the OG M2. So this video is mostly going to pertain to the OG N55 M2 from 2016 to 2018. I am not going to be covering the M2 competition, the M2 CS, or the new G87 M2. I may touch on a few points regarding those cars, but as a whole, I'm not going to be covering that. This is only for the N55 M2. Now, more specifically, what am I going to be covering in this video regarding the M2? I'm going to pretty much go over all the differences in years from 2016, 17, and 18. Kind of go over all the specs that you could get on the car when you're looking for it, all the options on the car, and most notably really just what the differences are. You know, talk about the special editions for the car and give my opinion on what I think is the best year model to buy for the M2. And then I'm going to touch a little bit on maintenance, so kind of what to expect with maintenance, what are the common problems, things that break, and then at the end I'm going to touch a little bit on finance and go over a little bit about what these cars typically go for and what you should expect to see as far as pricing goes. Now, that specifically applies to the American market because this is America, this is a Connecticut car. If you're watching this in the UK or somewhere else, that may not necessarily apply to you. So now that I went over pretty much what you can expect in this video and what we're going to cover, I guess let's jump into it with my 2016 BMW M2. And I'm going to start by talking about the different years and the pre-LCI, LCI models, and start with a general overview of the car. Okay, and I'm just going to do a quick walk around of the car while I talk about what years they made this car. So as I said, this is the 2016 BMW M2. This one is spec'd in the blue color, which is Long Beach blue, and the car ran from 2016 to 2018. Now, 2016 and 17 are known as the pre-LCI models. 2018 is when they changed the way the car looks with a few little facelifts, and I'll point out all that stuff in this video. And then 2019, they went to the M2 competition and they discontinued the N55 engine in this car. Now, under the hood, this is what you find. You find a 3-liter inline 6 with a turbo, the N55 engine. But if you're looking specifically to buy this car and the OG M2, you probably already know what's under the hood. Now, the car has 365 horsepower. The torque I'll leave on the screen because I never remember that number. And yeah, I'm not going to go too much into the actual performance numbers for this car. I'm just mostly going to focus on the differences between the years. Nothing in here changes from the 2016 to the 2018 models, and then obviously later with the competition they changed this to the S55 motor. But under the hood, we're pretty much going to close the hood, there's really no other differences. Now, color options on this car came in 4 main colors. So this one right here is the Long Beach blue, so this is the launch color. So when they first debuted the car, this is the color that the car debuted in. There's also white, black, and gray. None of them are bad choices, they all look really good on the car, but I think the blue, the Long Beach blue, is 100% the way to go. Now, it is very cloudy, so it doesn't really bring out the true color of this paint, but check it out in person if you have the opportunity. This is definitely, in my opinion, the color to get this car in. This car, while it does have 4 colors, there is a fun fact. There is actually one car in existence in Austin Yellow Metallic. It was bought by a car collector named Michael Fox, and he spec'd it for, I want to say, $100,000 for that car, and then recently it went up for auction for about $70,000. Brakes, there is a big brake package that you can get. So this is the standard brake kit on here. There is a set of upgraded brakes you can get for this car, and that applies to pretty much all the years. Now, this car does have some options on it from BMW, but ones that were not available on the initial check sheet. So the front kidney grills, these ones are black. The original ones are actually chrome, so the car did not come with black ones. That is a piece you had to buy after the fact. Same with the side markers. This actually is supposed to be chrome, but this one is black. Mirrors are aftermarket. They all have just the normal kind of rounded mirror caps on here. Only the M2 competition comes with the pointy mirrors. If you see any pointy one, that is not OEM to the car. Now, moving on to the back. Now, all the M2 wheels look like this. They all are the 5-spoke wheels. Those are all the same on all the cars. Now on the back, this carbon fiber spoiler right here, this is OEM from BMW, but it is not, again, an item that you check off when you order the car. This is kind of the extra stuff that you buy and then BMW will install when you pick up the car, or you could just completely buy them aftermarket. Same with this diffuser, that is also OEM BMW. So if you find a BMW that you're looking at and it has this style of spoiler with this specific style diffuser, that is most likely OEM. Now there is also a kind of side skirt fin that runs right here on both sides. I'll put a picture of that on the screen. That is also OEM from BMW. That is an option that they did have. Then to touch on for the American audience, this car does not have a sunroof. The American cars did not have the option for a sunroof until I believe 2018. I think the 2018s started to have the sunroof, and in Europe and Canada, I believe it was an option that you can get on the earlier models. But again, because this is the US, I'm not 100% sure on that. But most likely your car is not going to have a sunroof. Now outside aesthetically, there's nothing else that's really different from the 2016 to the 2017 model. You're going to pretty much see the exact same thing. Now let's talk about 2018. So 2018 is when they did the LCI upgrade, so the life cycle upgrade. And they changed a few things interior and exterior wise on the car. So starting from the front, the headlights, these are the halo lights. When they went to the LCI, these are no longer halos. They have like a hexagonal shape to them, and all the things I reference I'm going to put on the screen as side pictures so you can kind of take a look at them. But they eliminate these lights and they get kind of upgraded LED ones in the 2018s. That's pretty much it on the front end. Everything else is pretty much the same here. And on the back, the lights are different on the LCI 2018s. So this is what the lights look like on the 2016 and 17s. The shape of the actual bulbs inside, they also become LEDs, but the shape is different. So that is really the main change. You can spec this car with the M Performance exhaust as another one of those kind of aftermarket OEM BMW additions. This one is pure stock. It does not have any upgrades on it. And that's pretty much it as far as the outside of the car goes. There's not much to look for. Really, all it comes down to on the outside is what color do you want to spec the car in, and does it have the original spoiler and diffuser and then the grills with the chrome, or does it have the upgraded black and or carbon fiber bits. That's really the only difference on the outside. There is one exception to the wheels that I will go over in a little bit when I go over into the special editions of the car. But for now, let's jump into the interior. Okay, so on the inside of the car, the 2016 and 17s pretty much look exactly the same. And really the only difference is going to be Apple CarPlay. So this car, I know my screen's not on, there's really no point in turning it on, but the 2016 M2s do not have Apple CarPlay. So if that's something that's important to you, do not get a 2016 car. Also take note that in the 2017s, not all 2017s have Apple CarPlay. Now 2017 is when they started to introduce it, about halfway in the year. I would just be cautious that if you're buying a 2017, just double check that the car actually has CarPlay, because just because it's a 2017 does not necessarily mean that it will have Apple CarPlay. So then moving on to the LCI, the life cycle improvement, the facelift BMW M2. There are definitely some noticeable differences on the interior. Most notably, the dashboard is different. So this trim I actually like more than the LCI because this is kind of recessed a bit into the dash and it gives it a bit more dynamic texture in a way. It gives it more depth, whereas the other one, it has different shape, and again, it'll be on the screen. It's a lot more flush with the dash and it lacks a bit of extra character to me. I like the kitchen knife design a bit more. So that is different, and the carbon bit kind of runs all the way along here. And then on this side, the carbon bit is a little different as well. Now another big change is the screen right here, or the gauges right here. So it goes into like a hybrid, kind of a digital, not really digital, kind of a display. Nothing else on the interior changes really at all. And then the exterior is just different headlights and different taillights. That's pretty much all that you're gonna have for differences. Okay, I'm adding this little bit actually the next day. I completely forgot to record the one package the M2 actually comes with. How I did that, no idea. But you can actually get the car with the executive package. Now the executive package has a couple things in there. It has a few driver assists, so you'll see right here, basically it detects how close you are to the car in front of you if you need assistance with braking. Lane assist, the car also comes with that. The car also comes with a heated steering wheel, so there's a button there. So if you don't know if the car has the executive package or not, check for this. And then automatic high beam. So if you press this button right here on the stock, you'll have a little green light come up here. Turn on this. No, it's not gonna work. It's actually too bright out for it to turn on, I guess, but that's a feature of the executive package. And then with that as well, if you put the car in reverse, the reverse camera and parking sensors are actually also part of the executive package. I would definitely look for a car with the executive package because the package itself on the cars has depreciated to the point where it really doesn't cost any more for a car with the executive package compared to one without. So you might as well get one. The vast majority of these M2s out there have the package on them. So I wouldn't worry too much about them. I wouldn't consider it a deal breaker, but definitely, if the car has it, it is a plus. Just wanted to add this little bit into the video because I completely forgot to record this yesterday on the executive package. So now let's talk about special editions for the car. All right, so talking about special editions for the M2. Contrary to what a lot of people think, there are a few special editions of this car that did come out. It's just they weren't very popular, or there weren't really all that many of them, so not many people know of their existence. So, of the Pre-LCI, there is the M Performance Edition. Now, I'm not sure if they're all white, but from what I've seen, every single one that I've come across online has been white, so that may just be the color it comes in. Now, the only real noticeable difference in that car is, from what I researched, aesthetically, it has a few black pieces, which you could just add on aftermarket anyway. It has the speed limit increased. I want to say it ups it to 186 or something like that. The big drawback of the M Performance Edition is while this car and just about every other M2 is spec'd with the Harman Kardon audio system, the M Performance Edition is not. That one has the downgraded basic stereo system. So, in my opinion, do I think the M Performance Edition is worth it? No, I really don't think it's that worth it because you get a worse stereo system for a few aesthetic pieces that you could just add onto the car anyway. And realistically, you're probably never going to go past 155 in this car on the street anyway. And on the track, you may or may not even track your car. So is it worth it? I don't really think it is. But I do believe there were only 150 of those created. So if you are interested in a special edition, that is something you may want to look into. The LCI version of this car, the 2018, has a special edition called the Black Shadow Edition. Now, the Black Shadow Edition is kind of the final send-off for the BMW M2 with the N55 engine before they went to the competition. It's kind of like the final release of the car. So the whole car only comes in black sapphire. The mirrors are carbon fiber, and pretty much all the bits on the car are just black and carbon fiber, and the wheels are different. So these wheels are not the ones that come on the 2018 Black Shadow Edition. The only exception to different wheels is the Black Shadow Edition, and then when you get to the M2 competition in the M2 CS. Otherwise, every single M2 is going to have these wheels. Now, personally, do I think the Black Shadow Edition is worth it? It's one of those up in the air kind of things, because for the price of a Black Shadow Edition, and I don't remember how many are made because they made a lot more than 150, but with the Black Shadow Edition, the prices of them, because it's a 2018 and the LCIs go for a lot more than the pre-LCIs, you're starting to approach M2 competition money. And unless you specifically want that edition, just to say I have a Black Shadow Edition M2, I would avoid it and I would just get an M2 competition at that point, or just get a black M2 and just put all the upgrades on it and make it look pretty much exactly the same. And that's really it for the special editions of the OG M2. But now let's jump into the maintenance for the car. Now, overall, maintaining this car really isn't all that bad. You just have to stay up on everything. About every 30,000 miles, you just change your fluids, all your coolants, pretty much all your brake fluids, whatever. Just change your fluids, you'll be okay. The main difference maintenance-wise with the M2 and most M cars compared to the regular BMWs are spark plugs are changed every 30,000, whereas say on my M240i it was 60,000. That's really the main difference. Otherwise everything's exactly the same. You may pay a little bit more to maintain it just because of kind of the M tax, where places will just naturally charge you a little bit more because it's an M car. But honestly, it's really not all that bad. Your oil changes, for me, I pay about $150 for an oil change at an indie shop. That is probably about what you can expect for your M2 and just about most BMWs. Now, as far as transmission, I will touch on transmissions in this car. Maintenance-wise specifically, I made a video dedicated to comparing the maintenance costs between the manual, the dual clutch, which I did own in this car as well, and the ZFA. So if you're interested in taking a look at kind of the differences in maintenance specifically regarding the transmission, check out that video. But overall, my opinion on the transmissions for this car, just to touch on it really quick, it comes in 6-speed manual or 7-speed dual clutch. I have owned both of them in this color. One was dual clutch, one was a manual. And my honest opinion is the dual clutch is better. The 6-speed manual is really fun, and it's the novelty of it being a manual transmission, but it is a little quirky. The main drawback to the transmission, while overall it's really good, the 1-2 shift is terrible in this car. You rev out first gear, and then you have to wait and wait and wait for the revs to drop before you can put it into second and just kind of rip from there. All the other gears are fine. It's just the 1-2 shift in this car is pretty bad. Now, there is a clutch delay valve delete you can do on this car that supposedly helps it. This car I have not done that mod to, but supposedly it does make it a little better, but it doesn't eliminate the problem. So just bear that in mind. The dual clutch is fantastic, but it is very, very expensive to maintain that transmission, but it is really good. And in my opinion, the car definitely feels like it was built around the DCT. But either way, they're both phenomenal transmissions for this car, so you really can't go wrong with either one. Honestly, just pick whichever one you prefer. They're both really good in this car. Now, a few common problems on the OG M2. So this car has an aftermarket charge pipe, and the charge pipe in here for the turbo is known to crack and break. It is a very common problem, and it's one of those not if but when kind of a problem. Luckily, when I bought this car, the previous owner actually replaced it and put an aftermarket part in there, so that I was pretty much all set when I got the car. But 100%, if you are buying an OG M2 and it does not have the charge pipe replaced with an aftermarket one, 100% replace it. It will break on you. That is almost a guaranteed fact among M2 owners. It will break. Another common problem is the coolant reservoir and cap can crack. I have had mine crack, and it just causes a slew of problems. All your coolant just flows out very, very quickly, regardless of how small the crack is. You start getting check engine lights, and it's not a fun time. I have had it happen. It's not an expensive fix. For me, it was just a new cap, but just bear that in mind. That is something that could happen. And I do have some bits of wear right here from like age and stuff like that, but I have a whole separate video talking about age-related stuff. Now, on the back of the car, the 2016 models, the lights can actually burn out. Now, more specifically, inside the lights, and again, I have a whole video on this because it's happened to me on both sides, and then I found out it turns out to actually be a common issue that I didn't really know about until it happened to me. But what can happen is the ground wire, because they have one ground wire in each of the lights, and it can't handle all the current from the lights. So what will happen is the ground wire inside the little pin in the connectors will melt and just be completely fried. Your car will basically just shut off all the lights, and they just will not work. So you have to basically replace the backing with an upgraded one that they upgraded to in 2017. I'll touch on that in a moment, with another ground wire. And it has happened to me on both. It's not an expensive fix. It was like 150-ish bucks for the backing of each of the lights. Now, in 2017, they fixed this, so they included the upgraded piece with the additional ground wire. So it's an issue that you only have to worry about in 2016 models. So that's really it for maintenance. Like I said, there's not many things that go wrong with this car. They do have a few known problems, but if you maintain it, they don't really have many catastrophic failures. There's really nothing to touch on there. I mean, you could safely bump these up to 400 400, 450 horsepower with really no issues. So as a whole, I wouldn't really worry about reliability with this car. Like I said, it does have a few quirks and issues that do pop up with it, but they're really not all that expensive. The most expensive issue that you can really realistically come across is that charge pipe. Now I will be making a video very soon about maintenance on the BMW M2. I have owned this car for 1 year now. I have spent a lot of money maintaining it, and I have spent money fixing things that have broken on this car. So if you're looking at more specific, prices and what I paid for all the repairs, stay tuned for that video, subscribe for that one. It is coming very soon. If by the time you're watching this video it's already out, I'll put a link somewhere over here to that video. Now in the meantime, I do have a video about my 60,000 mile service that I did on the car. There was a lot of major things that I did in that service, so definitely take a look at that one if you want a general idea for now of how much certain things cost in the car. And that's really it as far as maintenance goes. So let's get into the finances of the BMW M2. Now, talking about money and the M2, for the most part, the OG M2 was really depreciated to its realistic rock bottom. It's not depreciating all that much from where it is now. For the most part, most of the OG M2s, the pre-LCIs, you're gonna find in the mid-30s. Some can approach the 40s and actually go into the 40s depending on mileage. But for the most part, for a clean car, you can expect to pay in like the mid 30,000s. Color wise, all the colors are pretty much exactly the same. Transmission wise, there really isn't much difference between the manual and the DCT pricing wise, at least from what I've seen. They're pretty neck and neck. It's not like a Ferrari where the gated manuals are like $50,000 more than the automatics. This car, for the most part, they're about the same, so I wouldn't really worry about which transmission to go for if you're worried solely about the money. Now, for reference, my first BMW M2 that I bought for $35,000, and this one I bought for $37,000. So you can get pretty good examples for in that range. And again, it all depends on mileage at that point. Now, what I've noticed is once your mileage kind of crosses that 60,000 mark, you really start going into like the mid-low 30s. So my first car I bought with about 65,000 miles. This one I bought with 57,000 miles. So as the mileage does go up, obviously as most cars, the price decreases, but it's not very dramatic. It's really once you get well into like the 80, 90, $100,000 mile marks that the car really depreciates. So the only times you'll really see these for under 30,000 is if their mileage is over 100,000, or if they have very, very bad accident history, like severe accidents, salvage titles, stuff like that. But for the most part, you can expect to pay in the low 30s or mid to upper 30s depending on what you want for mileage and stuff like that. Now, where it gets a little more expensive is in the 2018 LCIs, the upgraded facelift car. Now, those tend to go for the 40s. So the low 40s to like the mid and even upper 40s is what you can expect to pay for a 2018 model. Now, bear in mind, the only differences in those models are the headlights are different, the taillights are different, you get a different dash piece, and you get the kind of semi-digital gauge cluster. That's really it. That's the only difference. And then in some cases, the sunroof may or may not be optioned depending on like your country and stuff like that. But for the most part, that's really it. And the price difference really tends to be like a good $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 more for the 2018 compared to the 17 or 16 model. Now, price-wise between the 16 and 17, I haven't really seen all that much difference. There is a little bit just because naturally every year there is one, but it's not dramatic. It's really the facelift 2018s that have that big price gap. So if you are looking to buy one, you have to decide whether $5,000 extra is worth having upgraded headlights, taillights, gauge cluster, and a different dashboard piece. And then just to quickly touch on the M2 competition. So from the 2018 LCI, if you pay an extra $5 or so grand, you can pretty much get yourself in an M2 competition. And personally, as a whole, I think the best car to get is the 2017. And I'm going to go over why in a few moments. Now, to touch on the two special editions, the M Performance Edition and the Black Shadow Edition, personally, I would just stay away from them unless you specifically want a limited edition car. I wouldn't bother with them. For the price of a Black Shadow Edition, you could put the upgrades into an OG car, or you could pay a little bit more and just get an M2 competition at that point. And for the M Performance Edition, I would just avoid it altogether, just because you do get the worst sound system and the upgrades really aren't all that much in that car, and price wise they're not all that different from the regular cars. There is a slight increase in price, but it's really not all that much. The Black Shadow Edition, personally, I haven't really seen all that many for sale. When I have, they were like the high 40s, like $50,000 mark. So personally, I don't think they're worth it, but if it is something you're interested in, those editions do exist. Now, I think the 2017 is the correct model to buy for a few reasons. The first reason, it's not the first car. The first one is always the one with the most problems, the most issues, and more specifically, you avoid the taillight problem with the ground wire by getting a 2017. You also get Apple CarPlay, most likely as long as you verify that that specific 2017 actually has CarPlay. You get that upgrade, and price-wise, they're about the same. They're really not all that much different from the 16 and 17, so personally, I think the 2017 is the way to go. Color-wise, Long Beach Blue. For what it's worth, I bought this color twice. Transmission-wise, like I said before, either one is really good. The dual clutch definitely feels more suited to the car, but the 6-speed manual is a 6-speed manual, and it's a very tiny car meant for the back roads, so you can really weigh those. Either one, you can't go wrong. They're both phenomenal transmissions. Just bear in mind, the manual has the issue of the really kind of janky and awkward 1-2 shift. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So like I said, stay tuned for the video talking about maintenance specific to this car. And that's going to be everything, guys. So I hope you found this video helpful. I tried to kind of compile everything realistically you would need in order to make a decision on whether to buy an OG M2 or not, and more specifically which one to buy of the OG M2s, because there are a couple years, there are a couple editions. So again, I hope you guys found this guide helpful in making your decision with which M2 to buy with the N55 engine. And that's going to be it for this one. So if you liked the video, leave it a like. Leave me a comment talking about your car. If I said anything that was false or that needs to be corrected, just leave me a comment saying, hey, you said this is actually true, this is not true, and just correct me. I don't mind. So if I do say something wrong, please definitely correct it. And subscribe if you want to see more videos for me and currently my BMW M2. So thank you guys so much for watching. Till next time.